What up, chat? Since you can already hear me, how we doing? Where is my timer? There it is. Get the timer up. Might as well get it going. How we doing? How we feeling? It's been a fun, interesting day. It's repair day. I have a Nintendo 64 controller that has seen some better days for sure. I actually found out while I was looking at it, it has a rip in the cable. But I mean, well, without further ado, let me get you sent over here. So, make sure that's pretty well centered. So I'm gonna scooch in. My mic's probably gonna be like here. So, is there dust on this lens? Hold on. There we go. So, I'm going to be working on these two controllers here. But, let me actually turn this down just a... There we go. Check. There we go. I'm going to turn the gate.
NARP, said the creature, before losing all cognitive brain function.
There we go. NARP. There we go. Welcome to the Repair Show. This is the Repair Show. So, like I was saying, this controller is fine. Like, all it needs is to be opened and dusted. But the stick on this is excellent, right? If we look, now I don't have a way of testing the actual what's it called, the calibration to make sure it's calibrated properly, but I do have the ability to turn nice controller or busted controllers into nicer controllers. Now you see this one, and then we have this. Look at this joystick is dead. This joystick, there's nothing left here. So, we will be repairing this one tonight live. Got a cup of coffee. Let me get my tools. Right here. This stuff, let me get some cleaning supplies. All right, let's dig into our little thing here. So we're gonna need the lube. We're gonna need one of these. We're gonna need the mini gear and the big gear. That's the small gear and the big gear, and probably a brand new joystick. There we go. All right. What do you say we put on something a little more interesting, huh? I want all of them. John Madden's greatest soundtrack hits.
EA Sports. It's in the game. So clean out your locker. I'm out to get you. 'Cause I just pop.
No. Lost Media?
Whoa! That's one monster case of athlete's foot. Hit that with tough actin' Tinactin. It cools and cures most athlete's
How is this
foot.
lost media? This shit was on TV like every 4 seconds.
Get boom! Tough actin' Tinactin.
That shit was on TV all the goddamn time. I spent a year remaking Super Mario
In this
World.
video, I'm going to reimagine the original Super Mario World in 3D.
That's
I'm
cool.
going to make absolutely everything in levels 1.
Okay. This is Bobby Iver. I'm going to post his video in the chat. You should check him out. Looks like he's got 179,000. This is 1 million views, January 30th. So, yeah, let's vibe out to this while I start taking the controller apart.
1, 2, and even Yoshi's Island itself. Starting with this guy. So the original Mario is made up of a lot of 2D sprites, which means the first thing I had to do was model every single one in 3D. This took days, but as soon as I saw his animations, it definitely felt worth the effort. Now our Mario can run, jump, sprint with his little Italian legs, crouch, and even soar through the
Mario's
air
legs
when he sprint
Italian.
jumps, just like he can in the original.
His little
After that,
Italian
I made
legs?
Mario's
That's supposed to
ability
mean.
to jump and spin jump on his enemies, as well as his HP system. So Super Mushrooms transform him into Super Mario, taking a hit turns him back into Small Mario, and the second hit is game over. Now that Mario is ready, let's start making our first of 2 levels, level 1-2. I started by converting all the 2D platform tiles into 3D, and then used those
Why is
to
it
make
playing
a
the
level
Balatro
building tool.
theme in the
This lets us
background?
build this massive base platform that we need for this level, along with the smaller platforms that go on top. For the background, I placed this tree asset I made a few hundred times until it looked like a treetop canopy. Then I added the classic Mario clouds and changed the color of the sky to feel like a sunset. And after adding some finishing touches like the fog and falling leaves, the environment is ready.
mess with the parts later.
Time to start making everything in the level, starting with the Koopas. The first thing we need to do for these guys is make their movement AI. So let's have them patrol along a path.
AI?
Then, if Mario gets
Huh?
in range, they break away from their patrol path and start chasing Mario. But if Mario gets far enough away from them, they'll stop chasing Mario and organize themselves back into their patrol path. Unless they literally have 0 IQ and get stuck on everything. But that won't happen because I gave him the ability to traverse most platforms. So Mario can defeat Koopas with a single spin jump, but if he normal jumps on one, it drops its shell and becomes a shellless Koopa.
Nice.
I didn't know this, but if Mario walks into it while it's vulnerable, he actually kicks it automatically.
Finish him.
Damn.
Fatality.
But if it somehow survives the Wiggly stage, it looks for a shell to jump back into and becomes a full Koopa again. Mario can also pick up shells and kick them at his enemies. We also need to make shells bounce off of any walls or blocks they hit, as well as add the UI for the game and the score system. There's actually a slight difference between the red and green Koopas. The red ones will avoid
Ooh, this has
cliffs and turn
never
around,
been
while the
opened.
green ones, well,
Oh, God, the back of this controller is disgusting, dude.
Alright, the Koopas are ready and look great in the level,
Oh,
but
it's
there's
sticky.
one more
Ugh.
problem. Since the Koopas immediately run at you the second you're in range, you never get an opportunity to get that perfect one-up with the shell like you can in the original. So to fix this, we're gonna have these Koopas ignore
Yeah,
Mario
I'm gonna need
until he
to
jumps on one. Then they'll
Get
panic
some
for a second
alcohol in
before
here
chasing
to
Mario
break
like
this
normal.
stuff up.
Now you'll always have a chance to get that nostalgic one-up. And next, I started working on this treasure chest that I don't remember being here. Mario, go check it out.
Subscribe.
Oh yeah, it's the sponsor of today's
Oh,
video,
AG1.
AG1. AG1 is a daily health drink that's packed with 75 vitamins,
Ethical
minerals,
reacts.
and whole food sourced ingredients.
Ethical
with
reacts.
prebiotics and
Reacts. We're
probiotics
gonna let
for
the
gut
ad
health,
roll.
plus
I'm not gonna skip
antioxidants
it.
and functional mushrooms to help support your immune
Support your
system.
creators.
No wonder Mario loves his mushrooms so much. All this makes it one of the
There we
easiest
go.
things you can do
Ugh,
for your
God,
health, which is
disgusting.
exactly why it's been a part of my morning routine for quite a while now. My personal favorite thing is how convenient it is to make. All I need to do is pour some powder into
I
a
take
water
stuff like
bottle,
that.
and
Not
just
that
like
brand,
that,
but I
have
take stuff
clean
like that every
energy
day.
and peace of mind knowing
Try to.
all my nutritional
Usually end up
bases are
forgetting.
covered for the day. And honestly, if it's good enough for a 7-time Olympic gold medalist, it's definitely good
whatever,
enough for
Andrew
me.
Huberman,
So,
come
what are you
on.
waiting for? Use the link in my description or scan the QR code to get a free bottle of vitamin D3
There we
and
go.
K2, plus a welcome kit that comes with 4 free items with your first subscription of AG1. Thank you to AG1 for sponsoring this segment of the video. Alright, time to make Yoshi. Let's add another 30 Yoshi frames to the pile of models I already made. I'm getting faster at making these, but it still took me easily 10 hours. Maybe I should stop making these models 1 pixel at a time. But like I said before, the results are always worth it, especially after coding Mario's ability to ride Yoshi, which looks amazing. Now
Oh,
it's
this
time
has
to
like
add
a
Yoshi's
big.
jump attack, which defeats most enemies
I didn't
in
even
one
see
hit.
this.
Yoshi also takes the first hit
Has
from
like a
Mario,
big
but then
crack
he'll endlessly run away
in the
while
plastic
crying
right here.
until you manage to catch him. Most importantly though, jumping off Yoshi gives you an extra boost, so you can, as God intended, sacrifice him to make
right
those
here.
extra long jumps. I also
Huh,
coded
okay.
Yoshi's tongue.
That's
You
okay.
can eat stuff now.
Sucks on a
and
clear
I
one
can
like
add
this,
as many
'cause you
as
can
I
see
want,
it.
like 2 tongues, 10, or however many this is. Based on the color a shell Yoshi eats, he gains different abilities, like spitting out a green shell or fire breathing if you eat red shells. Koopas are also supposed to drop coins when they get hit by fireballs. So let's make the coins real quick. Collecting 100 regular coins or 5 or more dragon coins grants Mario an extra life. Now let's try this again with a couple more Koopas.
Damn.
Next, I made the berries and the berry bushes. The green berries are only found in the final 2 levels, and add 20 seconds to the timer for each berry Yoshi eats. After Yoshi eats 2 pink berries, he'll lay an egg that hatches into a small cloud, which drops 10 of these bonus coins. If Mario collects all 10, he's rewarded with a 1-up mushroom.
Cheer.
The red berries are the most common type.
'Kay, let's
If
open
Yoshi
this bad
eats
boy
10
up.
red berries, he plops down an egg that hatches into a super mushroom. Then I gave Mario the ability to run through bushes and place them in the level along with the 2 shellless Koopas and coins that go here. After that, I made and placed the question mark block. It can give coins, super mushrooms, 1-up mushrooms, or whatever I want.
Dirty.
And the last one's important because this block spawns Yoshi. I know Baby Yoshi and the different colors are not in the first 2 levels, but after seeing how adorable they looked, I just had to make them. Mario can feed Baby Yoshi by picking him up and running into enemies. He could even kick Baby Yoshi at them, which is a bit mean, but after eating 5 times, he grows into a big Yoshi. This is the only way to get red, yellow, or blue Yoshis in the game. Red Yoshis will always shoot fireballs no matter what color shell they eat, and the next 2 have different powers that are only active while there's a shell in their mouth. For the yellow Yoshis, they create earthquakes whenever they land after a jump. And the blue Yoshis have the ability to fly, so you can technically just skip the entire level and fly straight to the end if you wanted to.
This one's
And now if you combine them all together, we have a flying, earthquake
there we
making,
go.
fire breathing, shell spitting, Cthulhu of a Yoshi. Okay, now that I got that out of my system, let's move on to the Lookout Chuck. This guy has 3 HP and is immune to Mario's
Oh,
jumps
there's a
for a
little
brief
broken
second
piece of
after each
plastic.
hit.
Right here.
But shells and Yoshi fireballs are super effective,
Okay.
defeating him in
Let's
only
get
1
this,
hit. Once Lookout Chuck spots Mario in
joystick
range,
outta here.
he charges at Mario in a straight line. But this is a bit too easy to dodge in 3D, and I didn't want to just keep on increasing Lookout Chuck's speed until he becomes some sort of anime supervillain. So, to give old Chuck a chance, he now follows Mario as he charges. This is looking good, but I still don't like how he faces away from Mario and then instantly turns and charges. So, I gave him a little hop to help visualize his attack. And after adding a couple more things like these coins and this checkpoint, this part is done and we can move on to the Monty Mole. The personality of the Monty Moles is all in the way they move, so instead of having them run straight towards Mario, let's have them trail and drift as they approach. This really helps make them feel pesky and way too fast for their
Alright,
own good,
let's check
which
it out.
fits them perfectly. Monty Mole also has the ability to hop, and that's when I ran into this problem. They would jump on each other a bit too much and form into some kind of boss from Elden Ring. I'm not going to place this many in the level, but still, they shouldn't stack on top of each other at all. So, I gave them a separate, taller capsule collision that only blocks other Monty Moles, and that solved the problem. Also, you don't just find Monty Moles out in the wild. They live in these dens that they spawn from whenever Mario gets too close. And after placing a reasonable amount of spawners in the level, I started working on the spinning blocks. When Mario hits them, they either spin for a bit before returning back to normal, or they turn into empty blocks if they have anything in them, like these beanstalk ladders. On top of that, if they're empty and Super Mario spin jumps on them, they crumble. Now we can place the spinning blocks in the level and have Mario shimmy his way up to the heavens, where the cloud blocks wait and he can collect some more coins. And after adding these coins and the dotted blocks, this section is completed and we can move on to the cave. So that we're all on the same page, here's what the original cave looks like. The game has such a timeless look, I really hope I could do it justice. I started by adding the cave textures and lighting. Then I made the green exit pipe and placed some rocks around the edges. After that, I used the single pillar asset to make the background. I also placed some in the foreground to help frame the cave. To make the flying block, we just need to combine the question mark block with the wings that we already made. Then make them fly along a path, and most importantly, they need to lose their wings and turn into an empty block when hit. Seeing them fly around makes them feel like they're alive. So, I thought it would be interesting to include them in the background as a migrating colony of flying blocks. Now if you look closely enough, you can see them flying around. Next, I made the blue block. When Mario grabs one, he has 10 seconds to use it to hit a flying block before it crumbles. And with that, here's what the cave looks like with everything put together. I'm really happy with how it turned out, so let's move on to the next section. The Piranha Plant. The Piranha Plant was a pretty easy one to make. The only thing it does is jump up when Mario is not in range. Pretty simple. That, and Mario takes no damage if he spin jumps on it or while he's on Yoshi. It's a shame we can just easily walk past it in 3D though. Maybe I can add a dragon coin to bait Mario into the Piranha Plant. Or I can turn the pipe into a Piranha Plant spawner. This way it's impossible to run past it without consequence. Or my personal favorite solution, I can give the Piranha Plant some piranha guns.
Holy shit. That'd be
I
cool.
decided
That'd be
adding
cool,
more
man.
of them is probably the best option. After all, it gets the job done, and I like seeing more Piranha Plants. Next up is the P-switch. When Mario jumps on it, we just need to turn all the regular coins into empty blocks for 10 seconds. And when the timer ends... Sorry, Mario. Let's place the P-switch between these spinning blocks. Add the coins, along with the charging chuck and the exit gate that he guards. When Mario crosses the exit gate, the level ends and this iconic sequence plays. The only issue is, it's really complicated to remake perfectly in 3D.
How is it
I'll
like-
save it for the end of the next level, which we're
How
gonna
is
make in a
it
bit.
scratched
That being
right
said,
there?
we finished everything for this level, and we can move on to the next exciting challenge, Yoshi's Island. Yoshi's Island is at legendary levels of nostalgia, so I'm gonna try my absolute best to make it look proper in 3D.
God, I'm gonna
Let's
sand
start by
that.
making all
Holy
the
shit,
props.
how
There are
is
about
it- how is
15
that
of
even
them, and I made sure to
possible?
place them as accurately as possible to the original. Then I added the water, which turned out to be one of my favorite parts. After that, I placed the different types of foliage and added the moving elements like the clouds and chimney smoke from Yoshi's house, along with some VFX. Next, I added Mario's level selector and
Feels
made the
smoother.
animations that play after beating level 2 and level
Still a
1,
little
which
rough.
we're gonna make in a moment. What we need to do next is capture this view that we're looking at right now and project it onto this 3D plane. Add the background and space it out a bit to get this very important cast shadow. Then anchor a camera here for our perspective. And now, when we rotate the 3D plane, we get this really interesting illusion, kind of like we're looking through a window or a portal into Yoshi's Island. Now we just need to add the text at the top along with Mario. In the original, this Mario reflects your current state, big, small, or whatever power-up you have. But for some reason, the original doesn't show Mario riding Yoshi here, even though he's shown riding Yoshi on the map. I didn't want to perpetuate this discrimination, so I added all the different colors of Yoshi to
Perpetuate
the
this
UI.
discriminate. The Yoshi
Also, did you know
discrimination will
Luigi
not
was a
stand,
playable
man.
character in this game, and he was literally just Mario's sprite, but green. So I'll just copy Mario over, make him objectively worse, and we have Luigi.
What?
And now that we completed Yoshi's Island,
Objectively
let's
worse,
move on
come
to our
on.
next level, level 1-1. I remember this level being packed with so much fun things as a kid that I honestly
Okay,
can't
I
wait
still
to
need
see
the
how this
gears
turns
off
out.
of this thing.
I started by making this stylized fog and simple blue sky, then added these polka dotted blue hills and pale clouds, along with some VFX like wind lines and god rays. You know, the usual. Alright, I can't wait to make all the new things in this level, so let's get started with the blue Shellless Koopa. The blue variant of the Shellless Koopa is the most powerful type. They're thicker and faster than the other
Hopefully
types.
the gears
On
aren't
top of that,
busted
the blue
and worn
Koopaling
out,
is
or else
the
I'll have to
only
buy
enemy
new
that has
ones,
the ability to
or
stop throwable
harvest them from
objects
somewhere
like
else.
shells and kick them right back at Luigi. What an absolute menace. But this does come at the cost of them not being able to jump back into their shells. One of them slides down the slope right when the level starts, and unlike the other types, Luigi doesn't just instinctually kick it in the face when it's vulnerable. You take damage instead. Foul creature. Let's add this dragon coin and move on to Rex. Rex is a pretty simple enemy. When Luigi jumps on one, it suffers tremendous brain damage, but gains the ability to run a bit faster. And the second hit puts the poor thing out of its misery. Also, if Luigi's feeling merciful, a single spin jump sends it to the afterlife. So let's add a couple of them here, along with the flying block that has one of my favorite power-ups in it, the Fire Flower. For the Fire Flower, I started by creating its color palette for both Luigi and Mario. Then I made the Fireball model, along with its material and VFX. I thought it would be interesting to experiment with the Fireball's physics, but I didn't like how they would just slowly stop bouncing and eventually just roll on the ground. So I just kept it like the original. Also, Mario is only supposed to shoot fireballs out of his right hand. But instead, I made him switch his firing hand with each shot and made this seamlessly blend with all of Mario's running and jumping animations. The other thing is, when Fire Mario spin jumps, he shoots 2 fireballs. But this feels a little bit lackluster in 3D. Luckily, I coded it to easily shoot any amount of fireballs we want, like 10, 100, or as much as my computer can handle.
Oh my god.
As fun as it is to see Mario shoot fireballs as much as his little Italian heart desires, it's probably best that we cap the max amount of fireballs alive at once to 8. Oh, and I forgot to mention, extra power-ups are stored up here in the item slot and are dropped down whenever you want or automatically when damage is taken. Next, I added these green pipes, some more dino dudes, and a few more that run around
The
these
new
selected
one.
platforms to fill the space better, and another dragon coin.
Make sure.
This next part of the level has some piranha plants, as well as this cheeky mushroom that pops out of this bush whenever Luigi walks too close. And this pipe surrounded by stone blocks, which leads to another cave. But this one has some coins in it instead of flying blocks. Also, this cave exit leads Luigi through a launch pipe, which sends him flying over some piranha plants and into a checkpoint. We skipped over what the message block does in the last level, so this time, let's see what it does. Interesting. This platform has a lot more Rexes and a slope that Luigi can slide down. I did run into a sliding bug though, but eventually I managed to fix it and made Luigi damage enemies while sliding. Moving on, we have the bonsai
Feels
build.
like it's
I really
catching on
wanted
something
Bonsai
here.
Build to look exactly like his original sprite, so I modeled him
Yeah, it's
without
definitely
using
catching on
any
something.
voxels. That, and
Oh,
I may
I
be
see
a
it.
little bit traumatized from making more than 100 models 1 pixel at a time. Anyways, all we need to do is make them fly in a straight line, add the trail VFX, and have them die if Luigi jumps on them. Now here comes the challenging part with the bonsai bills. How do we spawn them into the level? We know that he spawns off screen in the original. The problem is, in 3D, we can see what's ahead of us, so they can't just spawn out of thin air. Originally, I thought the only way to solve this problem was to add cannons, but there's a couple of problems. One cannon is way too easy to walk past, and a whole row takes up way too much space. So I tried making bonsai bills follow Luigi so they can provide more of a challenge, and I wouldn't need to place as many cannons. But ultimately, I still don't like how I'm adding any cannons at all when they're not in the level in
Okay.
the original. So here's my final solution. Now they spawn from underneath the fog
Let me
and
try
curve
that.
onto the level. I really like how this turned out, so I added the rest of the bonsai bills throughout the level, like at the
Let me add a
start
little
and this bit near the end.
itty bitty tiny
Next, I added
piece
the
of
rest of this
grease.
section, where
back
Luigi
here.
can get this one up if he's fast enough by running ahead and catching it before it falls into this pit. And after building out more of the level, like this spot here and this
I'm literally
section,
just gonna like
we have the clapping Chuck. This
Get
version
the
of
tip.
Chuck doesn't charge Luigi the moment he's in range.
there you go.
Instead, he tries his best to mirror Luigi's jumps in an attempt to block him from passing.
Okay.
This looks great, but once again, we could just walk right past him in 3D. So, I gave our boy the ability to strafe along a path while still trying to get in between Luigi and the exit gate. And if Luigi manages to jump on his head, he forgets all of that and starts charging again. Alright, thanks for watching.
oh, that's it. Okay. Here, one sec.
I don't think I'll ever get tired of talking about Super Mario Galaxy, and simply because I feel it still has so much left to teach us. As I'm sure you're aware of by now, the game had its early roots in a tech demo for the GameCube labeled Super Mario 128, which featured a large number of Marios constantly falling off a bizarre morphing floating disc world, which eventually becomes a
Grease
pizza,
down in here.
and then the GameCube plays the pizza? Basically, it was a small demo mostly intended to show off new system features like real-time shadows, improved lighting, less pixelated textures, and the GameCube's ability to process and display a whole 128 Marios on the screen.
Mario.
As part of developing the code for this incredible work of art, the programmers had to tackle some unique challenges related to simulating this morphing pizza thing, including solving the problems of how objects realistically bounced around and off it. This small piece of development insight would later go on to influence the tech demo's director, Yoshiaki Koizumi. Koizumi had also directed Super Mario Sunshine, and after wrapping up that game's development, the team found that players not used to navigating 3D worlds encountered a lot of difficulty managing the camera, especially when they needed to turn around after running into a wall. Now, Nintendo has always been about ease of play, and so Koizumi realized that a perfectly round level wouldn't have any walls, and that players would never have to think about how to turn around. Instead, they could just keep running in the same direction forever, and the camera would seamlessly follow behind. At the time, though, it seemed like a very large technical challenge, and the idea was simply stashed away. After several restructurings of Nintendo's internal development teams, Koizumi suddenly found himself in the position of leading the brand new Tokyo office, consisting of a combination of staff who had worked on the older 3D Mario titles, alongside recent transplants from other game development companies. After finishing their first game, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, the team was then thrust in the position of helping to develop the next Mario title, and Koizumi realized that this new set of fresh faces might just be the team to pull off the perfectly spherical worlds. The team then studied the code for the Super Mario 128 demo for inspiration, and then spent a few months building a small prototype of Mario running around a single planet, which would eventually morph into the full game. A game unlike anything Nintendo had ever made. And as someone who looks deep into a lot of the code behind these games, I can say that pretty definitively, Super Mario Galaxy clearly stands out in how it was constructed, with very little of the typical approaches I see in some of their other titles. And there's no clearer example of that than the physics system that quite literally holds the game together. Despite being so innovative for the time, I think you'll be surprised at just how deceptively simple the actual details are once we dig into them. And believe it or not, I think learning about this might just change the way you see Super Mario Galaxy forever. So, ready to dive in? We're going to be taking a look at the physics behind spherical planets in Super Mario Galaxy.
Cap.
Now, before we start looking at Super Mario Galaxy in detail, we should first take a step back and look at how basic physics in older Mario games usually works.
Okay.
In the original Super Mario Bros., Mario was tracked on the screen using just two numbers, Mario's X and Y position. Changing X will move Mario left and right, and changing Y will move Mario up and down. To help coordinate movement, two extra numbers were used to keep track of Mario's X and Y speed. Every frame, the game's code checks the location under Mario's feet, and if there's nothing there, well, Mario needs to fall, so the game will set Mario's Y speed so that he goes down. But if instead there's some ground or, say, a block in the way, well, Mario needs to stop, so the game will snap Mario's Y position to the floor, and then reset the Y speed back to 0. Now, I'm obviously simplifying quite a bit here, since you've probably read before that the developers put quite a bit of effort into fine-tuning the precise algorithms of Mario's movement just to make the game feel smooth. But the core of it, the code that tracks Mario's physics, comes down to just a handful of numbers, and some fairly basic collision checks. As time went on, each new game in the series had changes and improvements to try and keep it feeling fresh, but the core principles remained the same, even while entering the third dimension. In Super Mario 64, Mario's position and speed would both gain an additional number for Z, which tracks forward and backward, but still, deep within the game's code is this assumption that Mario jumping always means Mario jumps up, and Mario falling always means Mario falls down. So the code that manages jumping and falling really only needs to touch Mario's Y speed. Now, some nitpicky viewers might remember the Raphael the Raven fight from Yoshi's Island, but if you pay attention closely, you'll see that Mario never actually changes directions. Instead, the background level scrolls around him, which is quite a sneaky trick. For the spherical planets in Super Mario Galaxy, though, they needed to actually solve this properly. If Mario stands here on a spherical planet, jumping will now move him to the left, and that needs to change Mario's X speed instead of the Y speed. Stand here instead, and it will affect both the X and Y speeds. Put simply, the game needs to be able to have Mario fall down not just with a single speed, but with a full 3 dimensions of it. If this sounds a little bit complicated, well, let's break it down just a bit more. The first thing we need to do is pick the specific direction that Mario will fall, a process that I'll call finding the falling direction. The second thing we need to do then is
finding the falling direction.
Both of these parts might sound pretty obvious and basic, but both parts are very different in the game's code, and they have a lot of subtleties to get them to feel right. So the solutions to them both drastically changed the way the game had to be designed. So let's start with finding the falling direction. One might imagine that the game could simply look around and have Mario fall towards the nearest planet. And if this game only had spherical planets, that might just work. Looking at more galaxies though, and the answer can get quite a bit more complicated. For instance, the Beach Bowl galaxy has what appears to be a spherical planet on its bottom half. So if the game just had Mario fall towards the nearest planet, you might think Mario would be able to jump off and run around it. If you try though, Mario will fall right off the side and die pretty much immediately. So the game clearly doesn't attract to every planet. And so you might make a second guess. Maybe the game uses the direction Mario is jumping to determine how he'll fall. But in the Flip Switch galaxy, we can try this same trick of jumping right off the edge, only to be wrapped around and attracted to the other side of the level. And the more we look at this in depth, the more confusing things seem to become. Jump at a wall in the Honey Hive galaxy, nothing happens. Jump at a wall in the Space Junk galaxy, and we're snapped right to it. Running around this disc-shaped planet in the Good Egg galaxy works fine, but not this similarly shaped planet right at the start of the Ghostly galaxy. And it starts to seem a little bit like an impossible paradox. Like, does Mario fall towards planets or not? What is actually going on here? To answer this, we're gonna have to dip, just briefly, into the mind of a game designer, and talk a little bit about rules and player expectations. As a game designer, it's usually in your best interest to keep things as consistent as possible. A player, either consciously or not, is always going to be thinking about making some sort of a plan for any challenge they come across, using the knowledge they've learned, things they see, and any educated guesses they can make. This might start off fairly simple, like learning that the A button makes Mario jump, and jumping into this question mark block will make a mushroom come out of the top, and touching the mushroom makes Mario bigger. After all, you've probably heard the story from Shigeru Miyamoto about how he designed the first level of Super Mario Bros. So that even if players were suspicious of a mushroom coming out of a block, the level design itself would box them in and they'd be forced to collect it. As the player learns the game's mechanics, these interactions can be layered and built on top of each other, and eventually what emerges isn't just a series of rules, but much more of a conversation between the player and the developers. Take this screen in Super Mario Bros. 3, for instance, where the player notices a question mark block boxed in, and the entrance is guarded by a chain chomp. Now, if you've played a Mario game before, you don't need to be told that this box likely has something quite important in it, some sort of goodie that will help you through what's to come. After all, it only seems fair that the game would only set up such a challenge if the reward was to be worth the risk. Now, note, no part of the game has ever told you this in a text box. There was no tutorial prompt saying, item boxes might have good items, and there's no
Looks like it's
rule in
rubbing
the
on the
game's
board a little
code
bit.
demanding that a question mark block boxed in by a chain chomp needs to have something good. Instead, a lot of information was told through nothing other than some objects and an enemy. This is a fairly basic situation, but already the player can use this information to strategize, asking questions like, do I risk pulling off a tricky stunt in the hopes I'll have a power-up to help me along, or do I forgo it and hope that what's to come isn't that bad? There's actually a whole theory of game design that the core fun in playing video games comes from reading a situation, formulating a plan of attack, simulating the consequences in your head, and then executing it successfully. Or, in the case you fail, figuring out what went wrong and how to learn from it. And even situations as basic as this obstacle course can lead to quite a bit of depth. For more on this, by the way, I recommend reading this blog post by Thomas Grip, one of the designers on Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Links in the description.
Amnesia.
Oh, and for those curious, the box actually contains a leaf. The key here, though, is that what's intuitive to the player isn't always a hard and fast rule. Instead, the game's own level design and art often tell us a lot more about what's going on. So nobody is really surprised when they plummet off the edge of Beach Bowl Galaxy because, well, there's a giant waterfall there, right there on the screen, showing us exactly which way gravity falls. Despite what you might have initially believed, Mario falls towards planets was never an actual rule in the game's engine. Instead, the art and level design itself do a lot of the heavy lifting to help convey which way things will fall. To actually create gameplay that matches, the development team need a gravity system that's flexible enough to handle whatever they need to throw at it. So, the actual rules in the game's code rely on a network of secret objects known as gravity fields. The player can fall off of Beach Bowl Galaxy because around the main planet is a gravity field object telling the game that things will fall straight down. Specifically, this object is known as a parallel gravity field,
If you don't put this
which
in even,
has
it can
the
be
behavior
weird.
of always pulling objects along a single direction. It's most frequently used around the bigger planets you're meant to explore,
it's leaning
more
forward a
like an
little
older
bit.
Mario game. Now, this might seem like a lot of work to go through, only to get back exactly where we started, with Mario only falling down. But by making gravity fields into objects, the designers can already do some interesting things. Super Mario Galaxy 2's Throwback Galaxy does this expertly by guiding you through a recreation of Whomp's Fortress. Once you think you've reached the top and killed a single enemy up there, you are instead thrust through the level to its secret underside, where you fight the real boss of the level, which is a great fake-out moment. As you could expect, two separate gravity fields are used to pull this off, with one providing most of the gravity in the level, and the other being positioned extremely carefully at the right spot to not allow players to skip right to it. And this sort of level design technique can be seen all over both Galaxy games. As another example, check out the Freeze Flame Galaxy, where you have to constantly flip between an intricate maze of parallel gravity fields to navigate the molten core of a planet that's been split in two. Designs like this aren't uncommon in the game's files, with the developers often having to mix together multiple different gravity fields to get some fun gameplay out of it. So the first planet you ever see in the Good Egg Galaxy starts the player off on a flat grassy plain, with a few bridges gently nodding them to go to the other side. The main trick here is the use of a disk gravity field, another of the game's built-in shapes. Disk gravity fields can be thought of as two flat opposing parallel gravity fields, connected on the edge by a rounded corner that the player can run across. Making our way around to the other side of the planet, though, we have this bridge that the player has to run up. This is powered by a carefully placed parallel gravity field, and bridging the two together is this little tiny curved segment. Since the disc will be pulling gravity up, and the parallel is pointing against the wall, we need an extra gravity field here to help the transition. So another new shape, this sort of wedge thing, is used to round out the corner. And with all of them lined up correctly and set with the right priorities, the result is pretty seamless. There are a total of 8 different kinds of shapes in the game, which might not seem like a lot, but combining them together gives the developers quite a bit more freedom. In the Gusty Garden Galaxy, 3 disk gravity fields are combined together to make these little bean planets, and parallel gravity fields are peppered around to make the little pedestals on them that you can stand on. However, even with all that flexibility, you can still notice signs of the basic gravity field shapes littered throughout the rest of the galaxy. Spheres, cubes, disks, donuts, cylinders, and wires. That last one is how this question mark planet works. It tries to pull everything towards this white line you see in the middle. The final 8th shape, by the way, is the cone gravity field, which is really only ever used twice in the whole game. Once in the Sea Slide Galaxy, and once in the Toy Time Galaxy. You might be wondering why basic shapes were used instead of some other method. Well, the obvious reason is that it saves on resources. To determine which way to fall in a spherical gravity field, take your current position, draw a line towards the point in the center of the sphere, and that's it. That's the direction to fall. So even the elaborate setup at the start of Good Egg Galaxy requires just a handful of checks and some fairly basic math for 3 gravity fields, compared to the over 4,000 triangles that its collision mesh contains. But more importantly than that, the basic shapes can help craft levels that are easier for the player to understand and easier for the designers to keep under control. If I just show you a sphere, it's pretty obvious how things will fall towards it, but the same isn't true for an intricately designed planet with houses, rocks, and craters all dotted around the landscape. Reminder, we want the gameplay to be front and center, and for the art to back that up. If each collision triangle was its own gravity field, with each triangle possibly having some influence over Mario's direction, it would be a lot of work to mark every single triangle with data.
This one's always so hard. It's so tiny and have big hands.
Like tagging that these floors should, but the walls of these houses shouldn't. By splitting the collision mesh from the gravity fields, it becomes easier to reason about and easier to fix any bugs and glitches that arise out of it. Not to mention, gravity fields are useful even outside of just planets. The Ghostly Galaxy contains a mission where you have to race this spooky boo dressed in Speed Racer attire by using some pole stars.
A spooky
If you
boo.
fall, the game needs to make sure you fall all the way back down to the start so you can't cheat. And parallel gravity fields are just the perfect tool to make that happen. Dotted around every level, you'll find plenty of one-off setups and scenarios just to make sure that if things get out of hand, Mario falls exactly where he needs to be. Merging this together with planets would make it more difficult to make these kinds of small adjustments, for very little benefit. Yes, using collision meshes for gravity would make it more flexible than a small handful of shapes, but given how obvious it all now appears in Gusty Garden Galaxy, if that really was such a problem, why am I the first person to point it out? Games are often as much about getting away with clever smoke and mirrors, and gravity fields feel like a nice middle ground solution, removing some amount of flexibility, but still allowing designers to craft fun and inventive gameplay. And on that note, now that we know which way things will fall, let's take a little bit of a closer look at how things fall. Now, obviously, in the vast emptiness of space, falling is super easy. Just move Mario along the falling direction. But when there's a planet in the way, Mario needs to stop. In games like Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, this was done through a simple process. First, draw a line downwards from Mario's center towards Mario's feet. If there's a floor there, then snap Mario to the floor, otherwise, Mario continues to fall. Sound familiar? Similarly, the game will check upwards for ceilings, and then in a small distance around Mario to look for walls.
It didn't go in right.
The combination of these 3 checks effectively gives Mario a cylinder for a hitbox. This is pretty standard for character collision. The 3D Zelda games all use cylinders for Link's collision, and they're also the default kind of character collision from engines like Unity and Unreal. But cylinders have a problem here. If you step on a platform into a new gravity field, the gravity will change, and that means Mario will start falling in a different direction, which means Mario's hitbox will rotate, and that can result in a lot of glitchy side effects, like clipping through the walls and getting stuck on ledges. Issues like this have actually plagued games that try to do wacky things with gravity for a long time, and Super Mario Galaxy almost certainly had this problem too during development. So Nintendo had to fix this, and they fixed it in one of the most bizarre ways I've ever seen. They swapped out the cylinder for a sphere. Now, spheres absolutely do solve this problem, because no matter how you rotate them, they're still the same shape. Gravity won't affect a sphere the same way, and any glitchiness from Mario rotating around will be completely absent.
One sec.
The only problem is that fitting Mario into a sphere would seem really unlikely. He's kind of a tall guy. And this is actually when I was so unsure of my own research, I asked a friend of mine to help me write some code to display Mario's hitbox in the game itself. And sure enough, Mario is actually a sphere. Though they do play some clever tricks, like detaching Mario's model from his hitbox during certain kinds of actions, like pushing up against a wall and climbing ledges. But beyond that, the team at Nintendo actually had to redesign Mario's model to fit quite a bit more snugly in a sphere. And that's something that becomes a lot more clear if we compare Mario's model from Galaxy to Mario's model in Sunshine.
I think
the Sunshine model is actually quite a bit taller and far more suited to a cylinder. In fact, in the process of checking the code for Super Mario Galaxy, I realized that there's no cylinder code left in the game at all. Almost every enemy and NPC has to have a sphere hitbox, whether they be Goombas, urchins, toads, penguins, lumas, or even some of these new enemies like the ice bubbles. Every single one has a round, plump design. Though there are some exceptions to that rule. NPCs that stay in one place, like Rosalina, can actually use multiple spheres for their hitboxes, since they never need to do any floor or wall detection. What's even more interesting, though, is that this new Mario design has stuck with future games in the series, even after the changing gravity gimmick was dropped. They had no technical reason to keep the shorter, rounder Mario, but games like Super Mario 3D World and Super Mario Odyssey use the design, and if anything, make Mario even more round. Whether the developers actually liked the smaller Mario design enough to set it as a mainstay for the series, or if they had other technical reasons to keep the sphere design, we might never know. Oh, and since you're probably wondering, Luigi has the exact same hitbox as Mario. It's pretty likely that since this was more of a bonus mode, the developers didn't want to risk redesigning everything and just stuck with Mario's hitbox dimensions, since that's what they likely tested most of the game with. Luigi's hat also pokes out of the sphere quite considerably, but low ceilings are kind of uncommon in this game to begin with, though if you do find one, it's very clear that Luigi's hat clips right into it. So the lesson here might be that animations and hitboxes can be fairly loose before anyone catches on to things being, anywhere near funky. One last thing I want to mention though, and that's shadows. Shadows are an interesting case, because they're actually an intersection where gameplay and graphics both meet. In a lot of games, shadows come from a light source like the sun, and they tilt around as long as the sun moves through the sky. You can see this approach in some Nintendo games too, like Mario Kart Wii, where you have these long, boxy shadows that clearly come from a single location. During the development of Super Mario 64, the team originally used this approach, but noticed that players were struggling quite a lot with depth perception, specifically landing accurate jumps. So they switched shadows to point always straight down. This way, the shadow would always be an accurate representation of where players would fall, allowing them to simply look at their shadow to know that they've nailed the jump right. And this is especially effective with items too. Without true 3D, it's really difficult to tell exactly where a floating red coin is in space. Add in the shadow though, and to collect it, it's as simple as lining Mario's shadow up with the one from the coin. And a lot of the time this happens, you do this without ever noticing it. compare this to some other platformer games that either haven't noticed this trick or haven't cared, whose platforming challenges can feel particularly frustrating as a result. And you can probably already tell where I'm going with this. Since shadows in Mario games are trying to tell us where things will fall, the shadows in Super Mario Galaxy use the gravity fields as well to figure out where they should be drawn. In fact, they even have a whole special category of gravity fields that only affect shadows. It's pretty infrequently used, but that's how these coins can have shadows that stick to the walls in places like the Honey Climb Galaxy, even when Mario falls straight down. This tradition, though, of having shadows that always point where they're falling, lives on even in the new era. In certain places in Super Mario Odyssey, you can even see both kinds of shadows side by side. This pole on the left has an elongated shadow cast from the sun, while Mario is seemingly lit from straight above. If anything, Super Mario Galaxy shows us what developers can do by really committing to thinking outside the box.
This thing's like really stiff
Spherical
for some
planets
reason.
and the gravity system in general could only really work if the team could rethink everything from the collision system, to shadows, to even redesigning Mario's model itself. And this, as always, is just scratching the surface. So, the next time you play Super Mario Galaxy, take a quick look around and see if you can spot the secret influence of spherical planets all around you. Hey there, thank you so much for watching. So, a bit of a channel update. Since the first video went up, people have been asking me about how they can support me, and so just like everybody else here, I figured I'd try out having a Patreon. It is 100% optional. I don't really have any plans to make any Patreon exclusive content, but the names you see on screen here got to see this video a few days early, so that's exciting.
These gears are so
If you would like to
annoying.
support
There you
me, the link is in the description.
Alright.
And
I need the
algorithm
magnifying
boosts are
glass.
always helpful, so please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share with friends, you get the picture. Otherwise, I know this video took quite a while to make. It's been almost 5 months since I started this project, and once Super Mario 3D All-Stars was announced, I kicked it into super high gear as well, hoping to make it in time for the release. And then I bought Among Us. So yeah, oops. As for what's next, I recently published the first half of a Q&A video that I did with fellow YouTuber Scruffy. The first part was focused on The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. The next part is actually based around Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, and I want to have that edited down into a video in hopefully a couple of weeks, maybe? And then what's after that is a toss-up between a few different ideas I've been bouncing around in my head. If you have anything you'd like me to take a look at, the best way to reach me is either on Twitter at JasperRLZ, or you can stop by the Discord server I run. Special thanks to my feedback crew this time, who were Jewel, Jacob, VG, Scruffy, Muzz, Solidified Gaming, Will, Really Tall, and Argle Bargle. And extra special thanks to Redeffy, who helped me build the hitbox visualizer for Super Mario Galaxy. If you want to play around with it yourself, I've put a link to it in the video description as well. A lot of visuals for this video were done through modifying the source code to noclip.website, which is a project I run that lets you view video game levels from Super Mario Galaxy and other games straight in your browser. And I think that's everything. Catch y'all in the next one. Take care. Bye. I don't think it's a big secret that Nintendo games have aged well. Despite coming out all the way back in 2001, the GameCube still holds a lot of fond memories for a lot of people. Now, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is a classic for a reason, but even Super Mario Sunshine or Mario Kart Double Dash, these games have held up really well despite being almost 20 years old. The strange thing is, as well-loved as these games are, I have not seen any discussion online about how they make these games look as good as they do. Nintendo has always shied away from talking about the engines or the internals behind their games, because they prefer to let the games sell themselves rather than the technology. But that's a little bit of a shame, because if you look inside, it's actually some of the most inventive stuff I've ever seen from a developer. Now, I've been studying Nintendo games for about 5 years now to try and figure out how they work. You might have even heard of a site I run called noclip.website, which lets you view levels from a lot of different Nintendo games right in your browser. So, as you can imagine, I have been digging really deep into the code of these games to figure out what's going on, and I think I finally got it. So, welcome to the first video in what is hopefully a very long series, where we'll dive into some of the most iconic Nintendo games out there and try and figure out how they work. I am endlessly fascinated with Nintendo's art style and their development process, and really, no matter how much I cover, there will always be more to talk about. But we have to start somewhere, so today we're going to be looking at a game that has held up spectacularly well, and go over how Nintendo used a twist on a classic developer technique to make something truly special. Alright, enough intro, so let's go straight into it. We're going to be taking a look at scrolling textures in Super Mario Galaxy 2. Now, this game is full of so much cool stuff, but one of my favorite parts is this bit right at the intro to Slimy Spring Galaxy. In fact, before we get into the really nitty-gritty technical stuff, I'd just like to ask you to take a second and really soak it all in, because it is absolutely gorgeous. You only see this little section for a few seconds before you plunge into the caves below and get further into the level, but just this, it's already set the mood perfectly. Now, with everything going on, you might imagine there's some sort of complex programming or fancy engine to get this to look right, but it's way simpler than you think. In fact, everything you're seeing here is just a few extra tricks on top of a scrolling texture. Now, Nintendo is no stranger to scrolling textures. They have used them in their 3D games basically since the beginning. You can see here in Super Mario 64, the lava here is just a big texture that was just scaled up and scrolled across the screen. And in Ocarina of Time, just one game later, you could see that they were actually getting quite fancy stacking and layering them.
That should be good.
And even putting them on walls instead of just on floors. But going back to Slimy Spring Galaxy, it's not too obvious where the scrolling textures are, which is weird. Because if we look over this ledge,
they're on the
we
waterfalls.
can see that this waterfall here, yeah, it's just our scrolling texture again. Regardless though, I assure you, this opening room is full of them. And the question then becomes, how are they hiding
this
it?
one so
And the
like-
answer is two main techniques.
Okay.
Displacement maps
I have an
and
idea.
layered
This
textures.
is gonna be this.
So
this,
let's break it down.
I
There are
mean, I
actually
have
three
another
main parts
bowl.
of this effect. We have the base layer, and then these two extra detail layers on top. This base layer here is the simplest. We can see it's just some textures that jiggle around a bit. The other two are a bit more fancy. We have this water that sort of slowly overflows off the ledge onto the one below, and then this stiller water that pools on top of the platform. But let's ignore those two detail layers for now and just focus on the base platform. The first surface here, it jiggles around a bit, and you might not recognize it,
Okay, I
but
don't want it to be
this
too
is actually
loose.
a perfect example of a displacement
But I
map.
do want to loosen this
So
up
displacement
a bit
maps
here.
are special layers that let us warp another texture.
I think
Using
that's
a
where it's getting
grayscale
stuck.
image, we can sort of push or pull the texture in different ways depending on what the displacement map says. Black pixels in the
think-
displacement map
I
will
think
pull the
that's where
texture
this is getting
up
stuck.
and to the left, while white pixels will push down and towards the right. Anywhere in between will just go from one to the other, with this neutral gray, 50% gray, doing exactly nothing. Adjusting the contrast to this texture adjusts the strength of the warp,
Do I have a toothpick?
allowing us to go from some subtle
I do.
wiggling to something that looks a bit more like stained glass or heavily smudged finger paint. Adjusting the size of the displacement map adjusts the tiling of the warp. A bigger displacement map gets you a softly distorted image, fluffed by a pillow almost. Shrinking it down instead, it becomes much sharper, way more like grains of sand. So, not only is the displacement map texture itself important, but these extra parameters help give more control to the artists, letting them hone in the exact warp they need.
Okay.
In this case, we're aiming for something
There we go.
a bit more like water ripples. So here, right in the middle, is just about right. The real magic, though, happens when we add scrolling. Rather than scroll the stone texture, we instead scroll the displacement map. This lets these water ripples bubble across different parts of the stone texture as it scrolls across, which can add a decent amount of depth to the texture. Combined with the other parameters I talked about before, you can get some really complex and interesting motion for just a small amount of effort. This doesn't just appear in
let's
Slimy
try it
Spring
now.
Galaxy, by the way. You'll see this sort of animated
kind of
displacement map
loosen this
all over both galaxies, mostly for any
fucking-
surfaces that want to
loosen
emulate a
this little,
shallow
like,
water look. To give just
gear
one
hole
example,
up.
the Honey Hive Galaxy uses a version of this effect nearly everywhere, again with some extra detail layers added on top to finish off the illusion. So let's talk for a bit about these detail layers. Jumping back to Slimy Spring, as I mentioned before, they're actually using two different detail layers here, the first being this waterfall. This waterfall is still just a displacement map, but it's actually being used in a substantially different way than before. Instead of just simply distorting a texture, a more subtle usage of displacement maps is in adding some extra depth to a tiled texture. Here, let me use an example. Say that we have this water texture, but scrolling it alone would look, well, a bit repetitive. To break it up, we can add a small displacement map, but we have to be careful how we do it. If we keep the displacement map the same size as the original texture, then we're getting the same distortion everywhere, and so it didn't help that much. But if we scale the displacement map just a tiny bit, then different parts of the displacement map are affecting different parts of the water texture each time it tiles. Now, no two tiles look exactly the same. Even better, we can animate this variety over time by scrolling the displacement map alongside scrolling the base texture. And voila, we've actually just made the water from Mario Kart Double Dash. Again though, if we look back at the game, you'll notice some extra detail layers used on top as always, but this is the core of the effect.
Okay.
Now, before we get back to the waterfall, there's
putting it
one
back together.
additional wrinkle we have to talk about, and that's how displacement maps interact with scaling. If, for instance, we were to take our original water texture, then add a displacement map, and then scale it up, then we get the original texture, just sort of bigger and blurrier. That's not very helpful for us. But what happens if we do things in reverse? We'll take our image, scale it up first, and then add the
Definitely
displacement
feeling
map.
better already.
The displacement map is now pushing around the blurry pixels of the bigger upscaled texture, which means we don't actually see the blurriness that much. Of course, the effect varies based on the contrast of our displacement map. If we have a low contrast image, then the blurry pixels won't get pushed around as much. But with a high contrast image, the blurry pixels get pushed around so much that you can barely see them stand out, so we'll get something that looks more like these wispy strands. This scaling even works up to 1080p. In fact, what you're seeing now was generated entirely from just these two textures. No fancy upscaling was used at all here, I swear. This, I think, shows the real power of displacement maps.
shit.
By pushing around blurry pixels, we can invent new texture resolution where there wasn't any before.
Okay, let's add a
It's
little
a
bit
really
of
cool
gear
way
grease
to
in
build
here.
interesting shapes and animations.
Actually,
and
I'll
as before,
do the
as a
spoon method
complete
that I
side
was
effect
working with
bonus,
earlier.
it scales to higher resolutions even better. I haven't tried it, but if it looks this good in 1080p from just these textures, it probably also looks good in 4K and beyond. So, moving back to this waterfall detail layer, you can probably recognize what's going on here. And now, using what we've learned, let's build it. Here's our original texture. It's a bit strange, but hey, I'm not gonna judge Nintendo's art team. Whatever works, works. So, we take this texture, first scale it up, then add a displacement map. We'll adjust the contrast and scale the displacement map to get everything lined up just right. And now, for the final touch, we'll add some scrolling. And presto, a waterfall. We're not quite done yet though. We still have to integrate it into the scene. Thankfully, this is the easy bit now. First, we'll take this effect we built and then just gently drape it over the edges of the platform. We'll tint it a
Ugh.
purple
Oh, it looks like the slime from,
the rest of Slimy Spring Galaxy. And then we'll need to fade it out at the bottom to let it blend in a little bit more with the other layers.
Mario Sunshine.
And finally, for the last step, we make it transparent. And there you go. That, my friends, is how you build a really cool overflowing water detail layer. The second detail layer is this water that's just sort of pooling on top of the platform. It doesn't use displacement maps though. Instead, this detail layer uses a much older technique, layered textures. In order to see it more clearly though, we're gonna have to travel just a bit farther into the level, just over this waterfall where there's a shrunken down version of the same effect. The textures are smaller and it's tiled a bit more, so it'll be a bit easier to see the actual scrolling. You can probably notice some scrolling-like movement here, but it's not clear which way it's scrolling. In some places it looks like it's scrolling up and to the left, and in others it's going down to the right. Well, this is where layered textures come in. We have this texture being scrolled in two different directions. These layers are combined to make this weird sort of primordial soup texture. Now, you might be wondering what I'm doing here, because this doesn't look anything like the water texture that we're trying to recreate. Now, watch closely. This is the magic. But unfortunately, it's a bit tough to explain. I'm going to try and do the best job I can. We're going to take all of the pixels that are too bright and just cut them out entirely. And as I lower the threshold here, you're going to see the brightest pixels slowly peel away, leaving only the softer and more transparent bits behind. And just like that, water. Well, the original texture brings back a few of the bright bits, so a second threshold is used to allow pixels that are overly bright. But that's it.
I'll be right back,
Combining
team.
two textures gives us a sort of blurry, noisy soup to work with, and that cutout takes that blurriness and turns it into a sharp, detailed shape. Much like the displacement map previously, this is a technique which takes the inherent blurriness that comes out of upscaling a texture and exploits it to make a really detailed shape, giving you something that scales again to 1080p and beyond. Now, going back up top near the entrance, the exact same thing is happening, but it's harder to see the whole effect since it's been scaled to be quite a bit larger. However, just to get you a taste of what's going on, here's me playing around with the thresholds some more so you can see the raw soup for this detail layer. But that's it! That is the entire entrance to Slimy Spring Galaxy, or at least most of it. As I said at the beginning, there's always more to talk about with Nintendo's art techniques, but I will have to save those for a future episode. Thank you so much for watching. This is just the first episode, but as you can probably tell, I'm already itching to make another. I will plug one thing, which is noclip.website, if I haven't already mentioned it enough. It is a website I made where you can check out Slimy Spring Galaxy right from your own browser and play around with it. I made a lot of this video with it as well, and I've put links in the description below that'll take you right there. If you have recommendations for things I should cover in future episodes, do let me know either in the comments below or on Twitter, where you can find me at JasperRLZ. I also try and post a lot of fun Nintendo content that you might be interested in, along with goofs and glitches I encounter while developing noclip.website. There's some good stuff there. Before we end here, I want to give a huge special thanks to She Says of Boundary Break for really inspiring me to make my own video content and for giving some additional feedback on this episode. Boundary Break is a really good show if you already haven't seen it. Additional thanks go to Jewel, Instant Grat, Andre, Will, Jonas, Dots Are Cool, and Creative Corner for their help, feedback, and support. Take care.
Super Mario Galaxy. This was one of Nintendo's more ambitious Mario projects at the time, but that ambition would lead to a treasure trove of glitches and other cool exploits. Like this one where I'm walking inside this wall to get to Luigi faster, or even where I managed to die in the observatory, which isn't supposed to happen. A couple things first though. All these glitches and exploits are possible to perform on the 3D All-Stars version, as that's the version I've done them on. Also, slight spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't played this game: when you collect all 120 stars with Mario and then beat the game,
Super Luigi Galaxy!
Luigi has a faster running speed as well as a higher jump, which makes him a perfect candidate for our first movement exploit, getting up to the garden area of the observatory before it's unlocked. To understand this, we first have to learn about 2P jumps. 2P, or 2-player jumps, give you an extra bit of height if you time a homing ground pound just before it. For this, you will have to have 2 controllers to get it down. But I'm just one person. Actually, you don't have to hold 2 controllers at once to do this. To practice this, first do a backflip, then perform a spin, quickly followed by a ground pound. This will cause Luigi to start a homing ground pound. The timing between the ground pound and spin is crucial, but once you think you got it, just pause the game and get the second controller ready. Unpause with the first controller, then hover the cursor over Luigi with the second controller and press A. You should see him get an extra high jump while a magical jingle plays. Once you've got that down, it's time to move on to the next step. In order to actually get up to the spot where you can perform the 2P jump right when you first get to the observatory, you'll want to head over to the little bridge leading to the kitchen, then backflip up onto the slippery roof. While you slide down, hold in the direction Luigi is sliding down in, then jump, hold the opposite direction, and spin. You may need to spin a few times in order for it to go through, but chaining these together will help you get up the roof and eventually have access to the upper engine area. Now here's where the real fun begins. Standing on top of the entrance to the upper engine room, you want to backflip while keeping the jump button held, and at the peak of your jump, perform a 2P jump. Again, you have a lenient window to press A on the second controller in order to get the jump, just as long as you spin then ground pound quickly. You will then have to wall jump off the bottom of the garden entrance, and then spinning while moving towards the walkway should be just enough to get you up to the top. Speaking of other ways to get high, you can break reality by launching either of the brothers high in the air. The secret? Any shoreline. While completely submerged underwater, you want to hold down on the control stick, spin, then upon touching the shoreline again, hold up and spin again. The timing is rather precise, but it's not really that hard. If you're not exactly holding up, say off to the left or right, the brother's angle will be skewed, launching you off course, possibly even to your demise. Now I could go on about how jumping off of a honeycomb as B Mario, if you spin at a certain time, your vertical speed will exponentially increase. And while that may be cool, it's not as cool as exploring the normally unexplorable parts of a planet. In Freeze Flame Galaxy's third star, you'll come to a planet that has both a water and lava section. In this pathway, there are a couple of tall walls that slant towards the top. By using a triple jump with the first jump being right about when you touch this line, if you spin while moving to the left, you will slide off the sloped portion. If you're able to get Mario to slide forwards, you can use the slope jump technique from earlier to make it up to this wall, where you can wall jump and spin to get over. What's odd is the amount of collision there is on this portion of the planet, though it's not all perfect, as you may even hit a water patch or two. In fact, I explored enough to the point I ended up getting stuck in a never-ending cycle of nauseating gravity changes, and oh my god, ground pounding just made it worse. Let's move on before it gets sick. Actually, this transition to the observatory is a perfect time to explain how I managed to die in said place. There's normally a magical power that will send you back to the observatory if you try to fall off it. Considering this game also doesn't give you fall damage, as that would probably happen when switching between gravities, it would be safe to say that there is no possible way to die here. Or so I thought, until I came across a video by YouTuber SPG64 who had shattered that sense of security with an honestly pretty clever way of getting around failsafes, such as not being able to use the Red Star's flying power-up while launching to the Trial Galaxy planet, or even fly to the planet with the power-up active. First, and most obvious, is that you'll need the Red Star to appear in the Comet Observatory, which can be done by reaching the Gateway Galaxy and collecting the purple coin star. Next, you'll want to break open the glass it's encased in, but don't collect it yet. Instead, launch yourself to the Trial Galaxy planet and walk around to the other side of this yellow part of the planet. You'll want to recenter the camera so it'll end up facing towards the observatory. Run under the Luma, immediately side flip, and perform a homing ground pound. After this, you'll want to perform another homing ground pound from a little distance away. The angle you are sent here is key, because you're going to want to use that momentum to fly off the planet and towards the Red Star. You can spin to get to the Red Star if you need to, and if you touch the ground that's okay, as long as you instantly jump off of it. These quick jumps can trick the game into thinking the last safe solid place you landed was the planet, rather than the observatory. Falling out of bounds will bring you back to the planet with the power-up in tow. From here, all you need to do is spin after jumping, and you should fly. If for some reason this doesn't happen, you can enter a level and come back to try again.
Nice and thorough.
Or just reset the game.
Nice and thorough, like.
But if you can fly, just keep going away from the observatory. you'll see it get smaller behind you. That is, until your power-up runs out and you're forced to fall down. Since you're much further away than intended, you'll die and respawn back to the spawn point.
Okay.
And yes, it is possible to game
So,
over here as well, though nothing special
Make sure
will
I
happen.
got everything here. Then I have to.
Here's something that's pretty easy to get
I
down.
just scrubbed them with soap
In the
and
Bubble
water.
Breeze Galaxy, after collecting the 5-star pieces to spawn the launch star and
Stuck
fly
in
over to
here.
the second half of the
Okay.
level, you're usually meant to follow the long path to get around to the star.
Let's
Though,
see.
when you first land on this part of the level, you can
Z
hear
button.
the star shining nearby.
Bumper. Bumper.
You can actually backflip
D-pad.
onto this rock formation, and
Buttons.
from there long jump over to the star,
Start.
saving you a good bit of time in the process.
Pretty sure that's all of them.
While we're on a time save kick, in Ghostly Galaxy's first mission, you are to save Luigi
Let me
in the
clean this
haunted
little
mansion.
oil
There's a key just
thing
outside
up
the mansion
here.
you can grab to unlock the door to enter, but who needs that when you can clip through It's as simple as long jumping past the platform here and using the pull star to pull
that
you under the
grease
mansion,
off here.
then using this top
So I don't
pull
have to
star to clip you inside.
get the stuff
because
greasy.
for some reason they didn't consider you
I
could
don't
go
really want
under
that
it to get
silicone
inside.
grease on these.
This means you still have to get the boom mushroom to make it to Luigi to finish the level. But maybe I don't feel
Just dry
like
these
it.
off.
Instead, you can do a harder setup to clip partially through the outside wall to make it directly to
Oh
Luigi.
wow, that's
There
fucking
were some
great.
other
Do you see
setups
that
for this
shit?
first part, but I'll show you what I'm calling the Glitch Doctor method. Head over to this broken edge of the floor, face down towards the camera, jumping and moving midair to get to this part of the floor. Maintaining your angle, jump and move off the platform, and when you fall down just below the mansion, hold up and spin. There's a chance you'll have to wall jump off of what looks like nothing, and doing so while keeping the jump button held, followed by spinning, should be enough to get you onto an invisible platform. If Mario stands on the platform and then looks like he's gonna fall off, you can spin and hold in the direction of this wall to get back
There
on.
we go. Nice and clean.
You
Nice
want
and
to be
clean.
close
Nice
to
and
the
clean.
left wall
Mr.
in order to
Clean.
stay
Mr.
on.
Clean.
From here, face straight forward and line up the camera so that you can see this much of the dark spot on this floor here, but not any more than this. You then want to backflip and hold down for only part of the time you're midair, keeping the stick neutral after. This should allow you to grab onto
shit.
a ledge. Now here comes another fun part.
God damn it.
You want to quickly tap up,
I dropped it on the
immediately
floor. Hold
followed
on.
by a spin, then
At
quickly
least
tap
it's yellow,
down
so
and
it's not
hold
like
left.
impossible to find.
This can be tricky to get down, but you should end up letting go of the ledge and aligning yourself straight into the wall. Holding left will allow Mario to walk like this without clipping back through the wall.
light.
Finally, moving up left just as you pass this line, immediately followed by a long jump while holding the jump button, you can spin and move back so that you get enough height and make it right to Luigi. I almost hadn't even known this clip was a thing, had it not been for the world record holder for the any % Mario category as of this video, Tibbs.
Fuck. Hold
This
on.
was a maddening trick to get
Let me get
down,
a
but
flashlight so I
upon
can
asking
find this
for their
damn
help
thing.
with the setup, it greatly helped me out and allowed this glitch to be displayed. You can also do the same with Luigi, though for the backflip and ledge grab, Luigi's backflip is a lot higher that you don't even need to set up for a ledge grab, cause with some trial and error, you can land right in the perfect spot, and even perform a single jump rather than a long jump to finish the level. Though this setup didn't stop me from dying I don't know how many
Let's
times,
see, where is it?
cause either way,
There
it's
it is.
still pretty hard. It's neat to see what some speedrunners can find.
It was way back
and
there.
Boy,
Okay.
they come up with some doozies.
Alright, back
In
to work.
Toy Time Galaxy's first mission, when you reach the giant Mecha Bowser, because Mario Sunshine was apparently not enough to convince the Koopa
is
family
warm
that
in here.
robot
Okay.
versions of yourself is probably not a good idea, you can long jump off this leg, and using spins and a series of wall kicks, you can get up to the head without needing to clear all the mini puzzles to do the same thing. There's one more thing I want to demonstrate, and somehow it's a little more broken than I originally thought. In Loop-de-Loop Galaxy, you were taught how to ride a manta ray so you can pass a water slide obstacle course. If this is not your first time coming here, you can ask him to teach you again. It's after this text box closes that you'll want to perform a frame-perfect jump when the screen turns black. Holding the jump button and then spinning, while either holding
Trying to get all
left
the
or
water
right
out.
the entire time, will get you off the ray and onto the floor around you. Landing too close to the ray will warp you back, so you'll have to leave and come back to try again. It's pretty difficult to get the timing down, and even to get a
I
high enough
washed
jump
it,
to get to the floor. which is
Pretty
easier
decent
to do
job,
with Luigi.
I'd say.
But upon landing on the floor, there are a few things you can do. While you are being taught how to angle your controller to steer the ray, you'll strut pretty weirdly across the ground. After passing the tutorial, when turning around while walking, the camera will snap very quickly to whatever direction you're facing. Going too far back will get you stuck behind an invisible wall. You can also swim in the water and pass the loading zone for the warp to the obstacle course, on top of the many different times the game will crash. But there's one thing that I hadn't seen done with this yet, and that is, what if you tried dying during this? You can't fall off the stage.
Objection!
It's false. Now, these three knuckleheads, and I'm sorry, boys, but that's what you are. They did a dumb thing, but I don't think they deserve to have their bright futures ruined by a momentary lapse of judgment.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so as it turns out, you can fall off the stage, which I later discovered. Either way, upon killing off one of the brothers by either falling off the stage or drowning in the water, I soon learned the weird stuff that the game will respond with. It spawned me back in the level with the teacher penguin asking if you want to learn how to ride a ray. I said yes to hear his tutorial again, but this time, upon going to the tutorial area, the race ended up starting on its own, with Luigi and the ray both completely out of sight. You can still take the tutorial if you want, which, upon finishing, will make the camera fly to the slide so you can see the track. If you manage to die during this tutorial by holding B to move, it will also fix the mission to where you're about to start the race. There were quite a lot of weird quirks shown here with Mario Galaxy, but the insane movement potential with Luigi and 2P jumps were beyond anything I had imagined, and we've only scraped the surface. If you're interested in seeing more,
I need to get like a
let
little
me
air,
know down in the
tiny
comments
mini
below.
like air blower
But
thing.
of course, with that being said, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care and peace.
We've been going for an hour and 21. That's not bad. It's not bad. Let's change gears here with YouTube. One sec. Let me see. What would be something good? Okay.
Have you ever stopped to consider the sheer volume of content available on YouTube?
It says YouTube's Hidden Lawless section featuring something sinister. I'm just going to say content warning because it does say something about a serial killer on the platform. So if that's something that makes you squeamish, just go ahead and mute. Put on your own tunes. I'm not really saying too much anyway.
When you load the site, you're usually greeted with a selection
So
of
content
videos that
warning,
makes up a
content
very
warning.
small
This
percentage
is
of the
the video is, yeah, YouTube's Hidden Lawless section by Pharrell Maguire.
platform. These are the videos that YouTube deems adequate enough to keep you from leaving the site in that very moment. But much like an iceberg, the depths below this sanitized invisible section of YouTube are so vast, it's very literally beyond our human comprehension. Every day, 720,000 hours of content is uploaded to YouTube.
These buttons
That's
are deep.
82 years. Or, in other words, more than an average American man could watch in his entire lifetime. And that's just in one day. In total, there are over 14 billion videos currently available on YouTube. That's about 1.5 videos for every person currently living on the planet. The vast majority of this content is not at all like the stuff you normally watch. 75% of videos on YouTube have no comments or likes. 96% of videos have less than 10,000 views. The overwhelming majority of videos on YouTube were not uploaded to take part in the so-called creator economy that I and every other YouTuber you watch takes part in, but rather to just store video files to share with specific people or to just host for their own purposes. whatever they may be. This is the largest section of this site, and it's known as Deep YouTube. In many ways, Deep YouTube plays by a different set of rules. The lack of visibility on this content means that it doesn't get caught breaking community guidelines nearly as much as more popular videos. Since these clips have essentially no views, it means the algorithm hasn't found any place for them on the site, and they lay disconnected and orphaned from everything else. Videos on Deep YouTube can be so hard to discover that there have been multiple projects developed just to explore and catalog it, like the Deep Into YouTube subreddit or the site PetitTube, which will show you a different video from Deep YouTube every time you refresh a page. All these factors thrown together makes Deep YouTube feel unpredictable, or maybe even a little dangerous. You really don't know what you're gonna find here. Maybe it's gonna be some unseen snuff movie, some Red Room recording, or maybe it's gonna be a video like O Trev Domina. This video is much like others we've covered on this channel. A compilation of creepy clips most likely inspired by the videotape from the 2002 movie, The Ring. These videos are always a little goofy and border on the realm of YouTube poops, but there's something different about this one. Outro of Domino is much more consistent. These clips all fit together well thematically, which makes me wonder if they mostly come from the same, or at least very similar sources. There's a lot of striking imagery here. I especially love the dance of this ghostly white figure, or this child floating up the wall. It's all very unsettling. The channel that uploaded this video is simply called Creepy Videos, and they're just one of many archives of strange and scary videos found on YouTube, and as such, they most likely didn't create this video. If we search for Outro of Domino on YouTube, we can, in fact, find several uploads of it on other channels. That doesn't exactly give us any answers though. Maybe finding the source for some of the clips in this video might help to narrow things down. I decided to start with some of the more distinct looking parts, like this couch with the white head and the Uzumaki. Doing a simple image back search on a screenshot from this section reveals that it comes from the 1932 French avant-garde movie, The Blood of a Poet. I decided to watch this movie to see if any more of Outro Domino's source from it, and indeed a couple more parts of it, like the child floating up the wall, and these shots of a man falling into a doorway. By the way, this is a really cool movie. Early experimental films are a really interesting rabbit hole. It's too bad the Hollywood code sucks so much of the creativity out of the early days of filmmaking.
Okay, let's clean
I
this
was kind of expecting a lot
board
of this
now.
video to come from the same source, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Doing another image back search, this time on a frame of the dancer, reveals that it's a recording of Japanese Buto dancer Kazuo Ono. While Buto dancing might sound like some traditional art form, it was in fact developed as part of the avant-garde movement, just like The Blood of a Poet. I was able to find a couple other sources or clips in Outro of Domino. This horse head comes from a black metal music video, and a few shots come from another historical French art house movie called Les Enfants Terribles, but that's all I could find. Normally, this would be where the story ends, but luckily, there is more to this one. Something I probably should have done right away was Googling Outro of Domino. Doing so brought me to a wiki we've seen many times on this channel, Secret Files. Here they list not only some of the sources we've already tracked down, but they also link to this French forum post, which reveals the true creator of Outro of Domino, a YouTuber known as Japan Pride 1000, who apparently made the video all the way back in 2011, and whose channel has unfortunately long been deleted. But luckily, in the expanses of Deep YouTube, there exists an archive of some of Japan Pride's other videos, which all have similar names to Outro of Domino. We've talked about a lot of goofy early YouTube horror on this channel, but I don't think anyone has done this style better than Japan Pride 1000. All of these videos feel unusually cohesive for the genre, and their choices of imagery are always really striking and memorable. It's too bad their channel basically lived and died with such little attention paid to it, with only Outref Domina remaining in any visible capacity on YouTube, with its 12,000 viewers having to climb down a rabbit hole just to discover its true creator. Outref Domina managed to find some semblance of a second life, completely orphaned and disconnected from his maker after their channels were removed from YouTube, being passed around several channels without a description or any context as to what it was, which is a common theme in deep YouTube. These videos aren't posted with the intention of gaining an audience, and therefore the metadata just kinda doesn't matter. This common lack of context only amplifies the uneasiness surrounding deep YouTube. Such is the case with our next video, which will be covered by my good friend, Something Sinister. Have you ever wondered why your oldest email address gets the most spam? I have an email account from 2005 that used to get a ton of spam, to the point where I opened up a new account entirely just to get away from it. Well, the reason is because of data brokers. Whenever you enter your personal information on an online form, you don't actually know how it's going to be handled. Some companies will just sell your info to data brokers without your consent, who then go and sell it to pretty much whoever is willing to pay the right price. The longer you use your email address, the more times it gets picked up by these data brokers, and the more junk you get in your inbox. It's not just online either. These data brokers are also the reason why you keep getting all those annoying scam robocalls. Luckily though, there's a service out there that can help you deal with this problem. Incogni, the sponsor of today's video. Incogni will find out which brokers have
Ethical
your data,
reacts,
and then
we're
they'll
gonna
reach out
watch
to them
it.
to get it removed.
I'm not even
After
really
signing up,
reacting,
the
it's
process
more
starts
like
right
ethical
away.
background
After
noise.
only a few minutes, Incogni had successfully completed 15 removal requests for me, with 20 still in progress. It's not just a one-time thing either. Even after a broker removes your data, Incogni will contact them again in a few months just in case they manage to get your info again. I've talked about Incogni on the channel before, and they've really done wonders for me. The amount of spam I regularly get on my main email address has been drastically reduced ever since I started using them. If you want to take back your online privacy, then go to incogni.com/feral or scan the QR code on screen to get an exclusive 60% discount on an Incogni membership. I highly recommend it.
This video, simply titled 424242, was uploaded in
Oh,
November
I see what
of
happened here.
2007. Despite its chilling content, it's currently sitting at just over 20,000 views.
The contact
Here's the
cleaner looks like
video.
it did a number on the silicone here. I gotta be careful not to get it on any buttons or anything. I gotta be real careful. 1995, huh? I was 6. Is there a jump scare? What's gonna happen here? I dare you. This is spooky. This is what counts as spooky and eerie. Just like a video with no sound. Upload to the end, like, dude, it's the fucking... Dude, you don't understand, dude. It's like the fucking scariest, dude. Listen, man, I was up for hours. Like, is it a body? Is that what that is? Or... Wait. Is there any sound? Hold on.
Let's start by translating the red text in the beginning of the video. It's Russian, and in English it reads, Tragedy, Ioltan, Editor, Alex. We are then given footage from what appears to be December 10th, 1995. A man walks onto the back of a trailer. It's covered in snow, and when he starts digging, he uncovers at least 2 bodies underneath a tarp or blanket. As the video ends, we get more red text, which translates to, like this was dying Ioltan. The channel this video belongs to is also named Ioltan. This recurring name, along with the date of December 10th, 1995, are all we have to go off of. The name Ioltan refers to a small settlement located in the northernmost point of Russia. If you visit it today, you will find that it is uninhabited. While it was once a big mining resource built by the Gulag prisoners, it was eventually abandoned following the collapse of the Soviet Union. But the question still remains, why are there bodies on the back of the trailer in 424242? Given what we know of this location, the date of December of 1995 becomes much more relevant. There are 2 common theories among the few people who have seen this video. The first being that these are the bodies of workers who died of tungsten poisoning while working in the mines. This theory would make sense, given that the settlement was abolished in 1995. The video could also show outsiders discovering what was an attempt to hide what was happening to the settlers working in the area. But at the end of the day, this is all speculation. The channel itself looks to be an archive of sorts for content revolving around Iolton. 424242 isn't even the channel's most popular upload. The video of men uncovering dead bodies has somehow fallen under the radar for all these years, earning it its place as one of YouTube's unwatched horrors.
I might have to look at that. It's probably not
One
even going to be
common
on
thing
YouTube.
you'll notice in deep YouTube are file names as video titles. This is because many of these videos are often uploaded right from a camera or smartphone without any sort of editing or modifications done to them.
Makes
and
sense.
the default title for every YouTube video is the clip's file name. The usual manifestation of this you'll see in deep YouTube are videos with the title IMG or MVI and then a random set of 4 numbers. This is because these are the 2 most common file name formats for both cameras and smartphones. If you search for IMG or MVI followed by any random 4 numbers, you'll get a ton of results all with the exact same title, no matter which 4 numbers you chose. I think trying out searches like this yourself is one of the best ways to conceptualize how massive deep YouTube truly is. Regardless of which numbers you choose, you'll be met with an endless selection of videos with that title. And no matter how far you scroll, YouTube will still keep serving you more and more videos. I tried scrolling for almost 10 minutes on one search, and YouTube still didn't run out of videos to show me that perfectly match my search query. The videos themselves, though, unfortunately, aren't usually that interesting. These are largely just random peeks into people's lives, and they obviously weren't put on YouTube to be shared with a general audience. Most of these uploads have less than 100 views, and a lot of them even have no views. It's pretty cool to be the first viewer of a video uploaded more than a decade ago. With all that being said though, there is a pretty horrifying set of videos with this title format lurking in one of the darkest corners of deep YouTube. On February 5th, 2025, a user on the Deep Into YouTube subreddit would make a post with the title, "I'm pretty sure I just found a serial killer's channel." The video linked appears to show a sliced off human face wrapped tightly in shrink wrap. The clip is only 8 seconds long. I usually like to tell you guys to go check out the stuff I cover yourselves, but maybe don't look this one up.
What?
The channel that uploaded this video is called Blue Water, and every video on their channel follows the...
Okay, I'm gonna look at this over here. There's no fucking way, dude. Blue Water 2016, there's no fucking way, dude. What?
But maybe don't look this one up. The channel that uploaded this video is called Blue Water. And
oh, not 2016, 9016. I don't... Okay, I'm looking at the video right now. I don't think this is a human face. It looks like a piece of meat. What is this? Okay. It's like another piece of meat in a bag. Yeah, it's just a piece of meat in a bag, dude. What the fuck? Hold on, what is this? Okay, now I see it. Okay. Alright, I'm looking at the video and... yeah, this is kind of graphic, but it looks like there's like a hand and like a chunk of it really doesn't look real, right? It looks like a hand, a piece of like a leg, and like a piece of like a head and a face, but it's like it looks so fucking oh my god, dude. Like Hands, it looks like styrofoam. Like you can see like the inside of a hand isn't pure white. Dude, this is okay. Come on. Yeah, they're like, oh look, you can see the eyes, like those. Okay, anyway.
Every video
I got
on
off.
the channel follows the IMG name format.
I had
we
to
just
look it up. I
talked
was like,
about.
there's no way. Come
And they
on.
all seem to be centered around severed human body parts and shrink wrap. While the one we just talked about shows Blue Water merely holding the human remains in front of the camera, most of the other videos, oddly enough, show him seemingly randomly coming across these shrink wrap body parts in nature. This is genuinely one of the strangest and most disturbing things I've ever come across on YouTube. But it gets even worse. Many of these shrink wrap videos are marked as made for kids, so they show up on the YouTube Kids app.
Of course.
Meaning he likely is intentionally trying to put this stuff on children's computer screens. Although I have heard sometimes YouTube automatically categorizes certain types of content as made for kids, so it's possible
I know
this
that.
was just an error on YouTube's end. I know how bad this all sounds, but I also want to make it clear that there is a possibility that these aren't real human remains. His video, IMG 7997,
It is 100% not
just
real.
shows him holding up a severed face in front of the camera, but this one has eyes that are very obviously just a picture painted on some flat material.
Yeah.
And analyzing the first video closer reveals that the face seems to be printed on a hand of some sort, whether it's real or not. Users on Reddit are also pretty split on whether or not these are real human body parts being shown off.
They're not.
A lot of people seem to assume that this is either some weird art project or just a straight up fetish surrounding mannequin parts.
Yeah, that's what I was, the word I was looking for. It's like, it looks like a mannequin.
YouTube's common lack of metadata. If the uploader explained somewhere what these videos were about, there wouldn't be any mystery here. But instead, we get the file name titles and no descriptions at all, which leaves out any sort of context, and ultimately, we can only speculate what's happening here. I'm personally leaning towards this being some sort of fetish or art project, but let me know what you guys think.
Fetish.
You might have noticed I've had to do a lot of censoring in this video, like I said before. Deep YouTube has much less strict moderation purely because of the lack of people watching these videos. The more views you get, the more careful you have to be about community guidelines. If you do want to watch this video completely uncensored though, you can do so on our Patreon. It's $5 a month for everything.
What?
You can see all of my videos sponsor-free,
No,
ad-free,
you can just
and
go.
the
You can
highest
just
quality
go
possible.
watch it.
And we're making Patreon exclusive full-length videos as well. Alright, these last two topics are pretty heavy. I'm going to hand you back over to something sinister to talk about something less upsetting.
This video, titled VHS Found in Trash, has just over 700 views. Let's take a look.
Let's take a look. Hell yeah, brother, let's take a look. Like, okay. A lot of the analog horror shit is like this, where it's like, look. This isn't scary, dude. If I turn off all the lights and take like 200 edibles, maybe this would be scary. But it just like, it's like someone found random video, like home video. Like, even like, I like spooky stuff, even stuff that's like, I know it's not real, but it's like just the idea is awesome to me.
As you can see, the video stutters in its opening before Static introduces us to a sped-up video of a young girl riding what appears to be an old rocking horse. She stops before another figure, an adult, I assume, walks over to her and extends their arms out.
What appears to be an
We then
adult,
get a
I
long
assume.
zoom out from the girl's face before the footage stops and jitters once again. It then cuts to black.
Is this all it takes?
The whole thing is very short.
The whole thing is
clocking in at just over a minute
very
long.
strange.
It's hard to determine right off the bat what the purpose of the video was.
It's hard to
Nothing
determine.
outlandish or sensational happens within its
he sounds good.
62-second runtime.
No hate,
It
no
is
hate, all love.
nonetheless as creepy as a lost VHS tape can be on its own. With very little to go off of,
I don't know,
I
lost
started
VHS.
by
I mean,
reverse
that's
image searching the
that's
young
the
girl on
disposable
horse.
'90s era,
This
man.
brought me to another video uploaded by the same YouTube user titled Brain Dead. It turns out this video was uploaded on October 20th, 2013, whereas VHS Found in Trash was uploaded in 2014. Brain Dead is more or less the same thing, a cryptic video utilizing grain and static to give us the feeling that we are seeing something that we shouldn't.
Yeah.
That is until 50 seconds in, when we can hear what sounds like a woman singing. The music then gets louder, and we see the words "brain dead" flash on screen. Police sirens ring in the background as the footage continues to show strange and distorted
dude, this is
imagery.
like,
The final
this is
frame
visuals
has
they
the
would play
words, "But
at
still
like hip hop
kicking,"
shows I
written
would
on
go
it.
to
The video
when I worked at
ends.
Guitar Center.
I'm sure you're asking the same question that I am. Why did Brain Dead show up as an exact match when image searching the young girl on the rocking horse? She doesn't make any appearance in Brain Dead at all. So what's going on?
There we go.
The channel uploading these videos is called Pony Birthdays. A lot of their uploads are similar in tone to VHS Found in Trash and Brain Dead, like Light Post Enlightenment Post, which is just a video featuring grainy footage of, you guessed it, a light post. But a recurring name within the uploads is Antique Pony. After watching some of these videos, it's clear that Antique Pony is the name of the band that is running this YouTube channel. Their upload, Antique Pony, Equestrianism, is a music video featuring a lot of similar imagery to VHS and Trash and Brain Dead. Flashing images, grain, and static.
Yeah, it just
It's
sounded
hard
like
to
a...
describe the band's sound. It's very experimental and very clearly recorded in someone's house. When exploring the band's Bandcamp page, they describe themselves as experimental.
My music's
art
recorded in
rock.
my house. What are you talking
With
about?
this new information in mind, I think VHS and Trash is potentially an attempt to garner mystery around the band. Videos like this go viral all the time for their strange and unusual quality. Maybe it was their hope that people would stumble upon it and share it around, and in doing so, be spreading the word about the band. It's also very clear that the band members are very interested in experimental art, and VHS and Trash could have just been a little side project to explore and be creative. Regardless, we're still left with the question of where did this strange footage of a girl on a rocking horse come from?
Probably a Goodwill.
Well, I don't think we can ever find out for certain. I actually reached out to Antique Pony via direct message and found out that the video was created by a man named Adam Cooley, who is not a direct member of the band, but was heavily associated with it. I was sent a link to his website, which, as you can see, is very rudimentary. The website itself is an overview of Adam and his work, all the way up until his untimely passing in 2014.
Oh, shit.
The only mention I could find of VHS Found in Trash is under the category of Other Works / Collabs. There's a bullet point reading Found in Trash, short film for Strange Vistas VHS compilation. When you click on the Strange Vistas link to purchase a copy, you're taken to a page that says the site can no longer be reached. With Adam's passing and this dead link, it's unlikely that we will ever know the true origin of the strange video that he made for Antique Pony, and all I can hope is that he is at peace now.
While that VHS may have been thrown in the trash, I'm very glad this next VHS we're going to talk about was not. This one was instead preserved in good condition for almost 20 years and then uploaded to this site. Like many videos from Deep YouTube, the title of the following clips are simply the file names of the videos.
Alright. Moment of truth, friends. Look at that, dude. Look at this. You kidding me? No play. No play. Look at that. Beautiful. Diagonals. Beautiful. Alright. Now we gotta do our due diligence, though. Okay. Let me pause this pseudo spooky video shit. We're gonna go to keyboard time. What I'm gonna do something like this. Okay. Now you guys can. Okay. All right. see if this shit works, man. Oh, I can sit in front of the fan too, dude. I can sit in front of the fan. Alright. Now what we don't want to see is no control pack found in port 1. Buttons feel good. Oh yeah. Ooh, damn, dude. Get up. Come on. We don't got time. No time to sleep. Finish your tricks before landing. Thanks. Controller feels good, man. Stupid game. Oh, it's like pitch black over here. Holy shit. Can't see anything. I guess I have to... Hello? Look at that. Beautiful, dude. Feels like brand new. Hell yeah, brother. We did it. Woo! It only took 2 hours. Damn. Hell yeah. That is... God, it feels good when this shit works out. Buttons feel nice. Everything feels clean. I'm going to wipe the inside of this just a little bit because there is grease in here. Get that grease, all hanging out. Look at this, dude. This makes me so happy. This controller was I mean, you can go back when I do the VOD. The controller at the beginning, if you remember... Dude, yes, yes, we did it. Fuck yes, dude. Okay, I gotta sell this now. So I'll put this in my... I'm gonna put this over here for the time being. Watch it. Watch the... Here you go, Roxanne. There you go. Oh, wait. I almost forgot. There is one more step. There's one more step. We gotta... There's one more step. We gotta clean the contacts here. Clean the contacts. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry. Let me clean up my desk here. Hell yeah. All right, let's turn the video back on while I clean up.
Does this remind you of anything?
No.
Because to me, this really looks like Backrooms found footage videos. The eerie, endless yellow corridors, the VHS look, the abandoned equipment spread out everywhere, it's all strikingly familiar. But these videos aren't pieces of internet horror. These are actual urban exploration videos. So, what's the story behind them?
People uploaded them to YouTube.
1950s UK, tensions with the Soviet Union had led to a common consensus that the threat of a nuclear strike was serious enough to take very expensive precautions. Bunkers were dug all around the country, but there still remained the issue of communication. Society could only really continue to function in the event of a nuclear war if common avenues of communication, like telephone lines, remained somewhat intact. So the British government began building huge telephone exchanges underneath major cities to safeguard phone lines from nuclear strikes. One of them being the Guardian Telephone Exchange underneath the centre of Manchester. The Guardian lays 35 meters or 112 feet underground and houses 2.5 kilometers of tunnels that wind and intersect beneath Manchester. After its construction, the government wouldn't publicly acknowledge that this huge underground complex even existed until 1968, which led to an aura of mystery that still surrounds the Guardian to this day. In the mid-1990s, two urban explorers would somehow find a way to enter the Guardian to explore and film it with a consumer camcorder. And almost 20 years later, they would publish it to YouTube. Little did they know that this was the only public footage ever recorded of this underground complex. These videos are so ominous and eerie. You're constantly expecting something bad to happen, but nothing ever does. Cause this isn't horror, this is real life. These Urbex videos just happen to be the closest real life thing to Backrooms found footage I've ever come across. If you're at all into liminal spaces, even if you've grown tired of them, you should still check out these videos. They're definitely the best liminal space related stuff I've seen in a long time. Alright guys, that's it for today's foray into deep YouTube. If you made this far into the video, why not consider subscribing? I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good night. In 2010, posts would begin circulating on Russian-language image boards revolving around a strange entity spotted outside a Russian housing complex. This creature, slightly larger than a human, was supposedly climbing down an apartment building much like a spider would, sticking to the walls with its long black limbs. Once it reaches the ground, its limbs shrink and the creature more resembles a tall, skinny human. All of these posts mention that this information was gathered from a video file called station922.mkv, but none of them would actually link to the file itself. The most we get from any of these posts are merely just screenshots from the clip. Supposedly, the station922.mkv file contains some sort of malware that destroys the operating system of the computer it's played on. This story would be passed around over the next couple of years, with new information occasionally being added to it. The clip was supposedly filmed in a suburb of Moscow, but nobody could find any evidence of this video actually existing. That is until 2013, when a user known as Funtail on YouTube would post the full video to his channel.
I'm back. What'd I miss? Oh, this one? I remember this video. From like 1,000 years ago. It's like, oh, it's a scary thing outside the building. I've been on the internet too long.
In this clip, we can indeed see some spider-like being climbing down an apartment building. Since the video appears to have been filmed at night on a smartphone, everything is pretty dark and you can't see very much.
Since everything's recorded
We
like
only
shit,
catch a
everything
couple
looks like
glimpses of
shit.
the creature. One thing I noticed right away is that the screenshots from the original Station 922 posts that were floating around a couple years prior don't actually show up in the video. In fact, the setting appears to be completely different. While the buildings look pretty similar, the screenshots are much brighter than the video we just watched. There's also a ton of grain in the screenshots, and the white balance seems to be giving the picture a yellowish tint, whereas the video doesn't have any grain and has a more orange tint. These screenshots do not come from this video. Upon checking the description, we can see a few links. One of them leading to the uploader's VK profile, a popular Russian social media site similar to Facebook, and also an article seemingly written on a site ran by the uploader. This article tells a story much like all the image board posts discussing Station 922. The difference here being that the write-up ends with the uploader telling us that he accidentally found the original video in the expanses of the web. This clip, which I'm sure I don't have to tell you is 100% fabricated, would go on to get 500,000 views, fueling ever more intrigue into Station 922. Just what was this creature, and why has the original video seemingly been wiped off the face of the internet? We had to wait a few years, but we would end up getting answers to all of these questions.
Someone probably just making
You see,
something
talented
fun.
internet sleuths who can uncover seemingly the smallest needles in the biggest haystacks are not a phenomenon exclusive to the West. In a stark parallel to the search for the origin of the Backrooms location, a group of Russian internet detectives got together in 2014 to try to uncover the truth behind station922.mkv. Over the next few years, they would slowly unravel the entire story down to the smallest details. They would discover that the pictures weren't taken in Moscow, but instead in the Russian city of Perm. They would not only identify the exact apartment unit where the photos were taken, but they would also interview the residents of the building, asking if they knew anything about the creature. They would even manage to track down the anonymous internet user who originally came up with Station 922. Not surprisingly, he had made the creature in Photoshop. There was never any video. That's not quite where the story ends though, because in 2021, a user on YouTube known as Ivan Talk would presumably take advantage of the knowledge uncovered by the search team to recreate what the original video might have looked like if it were real using Blender,
we're not going to do that this one
poetically putting an end to one of Russia's most infamous internet mysteries. Всем привет! As a Canadian, Russia has always been a very interesting country to me. In many ways, our two nations are quite similar. We're both very large, very cold countries mostly comprised of uninhabitable tundra, forest, and sprawling Great Plains. We're both chock full of colonial cities filled mostly with ethnic Europeans who practice some form of Christianity. We've both treated our indigenous populations pretty poorly, we both have a lot of oil and gas to sell. Oh, and of course we both love hockey. But in other ways, our countries couldn't be more different. Canada is a new world country that's an unwavering staple of the West, whereas Russia is an old world country that has historically almost single-handedly been the East, developing their own ways of operating society separately from the West.
Whew,
all
got
the way
so much
down from
shit
big
to put
things
away,
like
man.
the language's alphabet or how their government operates, to little insignificant things like how homes are heated. And let's not forget, Russia's war in Ukraine has led to them getting essentially cut off from the West, resulting in the majority of Western chains in the country transforming into uncanny Russian clones, which makes all these differences feel ever more pronounced. In many ways, Russia feels like a bizarro version of Canada, a place where everything is similar but nothing is quite the same. And I'm sure many of you watching from the USA probably feel a similar way. Today, we're going to dive into the world of Russian internet horror, which is a topic seldom discussed by Western YouTubers. We already went over Station 922, which is a pretty infamous mystery, but our next topic is a much more obscure mystery. On July 11th, 2013, a user on the paranormal board on 4chan would write the following post.
Hey X, my
Okay.
dad wanted to see at a computer expo in Rochester, New York a few years back.
Hell yeah, man.
The CD itself was for some engineering software, but there was a second CD inside the CD case. There was no designer writing on it, and on the CD was a zip file called Station.
Interesting.
Inside is a Blender game and a bunch of DLL files. The game itself is very strange. I don't want to ruin much, but it's a very crudely made game.
I like that they gave me
that
a
takes some sort of
cable for this.
buildings. The goal is to escape the entities that are chasing you. Once they
It's funny
touch
because I
you,
really
they
only
will
needed
close.
one, but they didn't have
A
like.
couple other
It's like
anons
buy
in the
one
thread were
for
skeptical,
$1
but
or like
actually
$2.99, or
uploaded
buy
the
this
files
many
to
for like $8.
Mediafire. And he was telling the truth. There was indeed a game here, much like he was describing. Upon loading it up, you're immediately dropped into a very simple looking game world without any sort of menu or intro of any kind. There aren't any textures, just different colored polygons. The field of view here is really narrow and it makes the game feel very claustrophobic. You can hear strange droning sounds in the distance and some unsettling ambient loop that almost sounds reverse. You appear to be in a building surrounded by an infinite green field under a black sky.
There we go.
Outside
Okay.
the building is what
What should we
might be a
do? Should we
propane
switch to
tank,
games?
Another small building, and also two
Me-
more
oh.
tanks, suggesting that this might be some sort of industrial complex.
There we go.
Outside, you'll also notice what appears to be a dock on the grass, which seems to be pretty out of place considering there's no water anywhere. As you explore and try to figure out just what's going on, these round white faces will begin descending from the sky and following you. If they touch you, the game immediately shuts off, and that's all there really is to it. Nowadays, this might seem pretty akin to your average itch.io horror slop, but this sort of thing wasn't as common back in 2013. A year prior in 2012, I remember playing SCP-087, which was pretty similar. You're immediately dropped into the game without any sort of menu, explanation, or exposition. The only thing you can really do here is descend the staircase.
There we go. Okay, I was looking at some stuff. All right, I don't want to watch this spooky Russian internet shit. It's
Eventually-
boring. Shit's boring. 4 hours of internet mysteries. Nah. Let's see. I'm looking at something on my screen over here for Chili Town. Mysterious fake towns. You know what? Let's play a round of Balatro. How about that? We'll just play a round of Balatro, dude. We'll just play a round of Balatro. That sounds more interesting than watching random YouTube videos, huh? Huh? Bum 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 bum.
Narp, said the creature, before losing all cognitive brain function.
Yeah, same. Bum 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 blum 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 blum. Hell yeah, Balatro, dude. All right, let's play the balance deck. Am I gonna get a full house, or am I just like playing with myself here? Oh my Lanta, dude. What a great
Narp,
start.
said the creature.
Ah, shit. Ah, shit. Yes. Where is Steam? View. Balatro. There we go. Balatro. There we go. Thank you. Bakota Dobold. Chip. Bakomba Dobom. Oh, dude. Gimme. Yeah, let me just have 6 cards in my hand. Thanks. 9 is 5 ace. There we go. If I get a what the fuck is it called? The hack. That would be pretty interesting too. Okay, let me clear my reward requests, because if you guys start pummeling me with reward requests and they don't work, no, I don't need anything from the store. Queen, Jack, 10, King, Queen. King, Queen, 10, 9. I'm going to play this, so I have a discard still. King, King. Oh, okay, well. There we go. No. I see. $3x if played hand contains a straight. If first discard of round, yeah, I know these cards. Oh man. Ooh, why am I so sleepy? I haven't. It's been 2 days since I've taken a random nap in the middle of the day. I'm really trying to break that habit. I've been doing that for months, where I've been falling asleep, even for just like 45 minutes. Like I don't have. Oh, here, one sec. Beep, beep, ba ba baby ba dee dee da ba beep, baby. There we go. I had to fix my gate. There we go. The gate. Destroy it, earn $3. Fuck it. Ugh. Shoo-ma-na-ma-na-ma-na-ma-noo. Boo-boo-boo. What does this mean? What does this mean? Do I play one? Do I play a card and add it to my deck? Oh, actually, holy shit. Okay, so if I want to make jacks, right? So this is destroy a card. Okay. Which is fine. We're gonna destroy this this 4 right here. Okay. Permanent copy. Let's do a permanent copy of this king. Okay, that's not terrible. I don't really have anything that's giving me molt. Yeah, let's hit the Celestial pack. Yeah, I don't really want to copy any of these, so we're gonna let this one go. Mima, Mima. Oh, I should, hold on, let me fix my light. Just realized it's still light. There we go. Ooh. We're good. Dude, I am sweating. Come here. Yeah, there we go, brother. Hell yeah, brother. Yeah. Hit me with that. Hit me with your best shot right there. Oh. Oh. Oh, yes. Oh, that feels good. Cat. Oh my god. What a wild set of, I have seen nothing but like uncommons and rares. This is a crazy run. I do like this card though. Hell yeah, dude. Okay. You better start doing stuff. Come on. Come on, do something. Okay. Let's see what we can get out of here. Oh, now it's... Hell yeah, finally. Okay. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay. Soda diet. Soda! This is still doing okay. Oh, nice. It upgraded the full house for me. We can open up both these, so... Really don't want any of these, damn. Oh my god, what? Ooh, okay. You know what? Hell yeah, dude. Bop, bop, bop. Bop, bop, bop. Oh, come on, where's the 10? Oh, I'm out of discards. Fuck. Nah. Oh, well, we can turn this into a glass card. And I'm hungry. After this run, and I end stream and send you guys off to a fun streamer. Knew it. Hit the straight, baby. All day. That's what we do. We get lucky. There we go. I don't know if this is going to be enough. Wait. Wouldn't it just be better to do that than play that? Yeah. No, it wasn't enough, dude. That was such a good run. Well, we fixed a Nintendo 64 controller from basically busted to nearly new. We lost a run at Balatro. That's a full evening, guys. Streamiversary still going on. The fixing the controller is fun. This weekend, Friday and Saturday, I'll be back. We'll be making music. Same thing. Making music, playing games, talking bullshit. I appreciate you guys hanging out all this time and continuing into the future. Who should I raid here? And then I'm going to find out my food situation. I'm gonna send you to a guy. Or no, I'm gonna send you to Cass. Go say hi to Cass. They're making fursuits. Spam John Madden when you get in there. Just spam John Madden. Here, I'll even just spam John Madden. You guys are great. Be back on Friday. Thank you. Check me out on Prano everywhere. Prano Audio everywhere. Blue Sky, Coffee Page, Itch.io, Gumroad. Go check out Cass.